Is the iPhone 15 a cinema camera replacement? Let's be real, not yet. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Dylan, and today I want to talk about the iPhone 15 Pro Max and a little bit more of a cinema setup. So, to go over the setup real quick, we have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, a MagSafe filter adapter from SmallRig, their Black Pro Mist filter, and a variable ND. You need an SSD fast enough for the bitrate of ProRes. I used a Joby GorillaPod. Yeah, remember those? A K&F Concept phone clamp and an SSD holder from NiceyRig. Now, to go over settings real quick for the Blackmagic app, you're going to want to use 180-degree shutter angle all the time. So if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, that's going to be 1/50th. You can set it to shutter angle in the app though, so you don't really need to worry about that. And then depending on the scene, you're going to want to lock the white balance and the ISO. For all these shots in this test, I had the stabilization set to cinematic. Did everything handheld, didn't really do any static tripod shots, but it is fairly easy to turn off if you're doing a static shot. Now, all color correction was done in Final Cut, and then just exported it, so I had it ready for any other editors. Now, the main benefit of this setup is the footage looks way better than the default camera app. At least I think so. So, what are some quirks or hurdles I encountered with this setup? I was shooting in the middle of the day, probably like around 2:30, very bright sun, and maybe the biggest hurdle was having fixed aperture on all the lenses. Obviously, all these cameras are very tiny, and it's pretty hard to engineer that, although it has been in other phones. But the fixed aperture means that you need even more ND or a stronger ND filter to compensate for that if you want to use, say, the best camera during the day. If that main lens did have a variable aperture, say if it could even just stop down to f4, it would be much easier, to use this in bright conditions and to get sharper images if you're doing something up close. With this particular setup, the ultra wide was pretty much useless. That could be just from my particular setup or user error, but you can definitely see the filters in the corner of the frame, so it's not really meant for that. Or you could always just remove them and switch to the default app for any ultra wide shots. It's going to be different quality, different coloring, but that's something to look out for. Now, one of the main perks of the 15 Pro was them switching to USB-C. Obviously, this whole setup works with SSDs, and it's great for that, as well as SD cards, all that kind of stuff, anything that'll adapt. But this also might be the best case for higher capacity iPhone. If you did want a super minimal setup, or if you plan on using this as your B cam a lot, or even your sole A cam, that might be really the only case I can think of for the higher capacity iPhones. I think the biggest question this leaves me with this little test, and just finding out what is possible in the Blackmagic app, is just wondering why their default straight out of camera stuff, while it is sharp and most people find it usable, for anyone a little more interested in cameras, cinema, filmmaking, any of that kind of stuff, I don't think it's something that they would consider a pleasing image. And obviously, Apple knows what a pleasing image looks like. We all do. So I'm just wondering why the straight out of camera footage is so over contrasty, so, you know, that phone look, when it could be something much softer, less contrast, more pleasing, dare I say, more cinematic. I'm wondering why the default image can't at least look closer to this. I know this is capturing far more data, more dynamic range, but surely they could make it at least closer. I don't know their whole imaging pipeline. I don't know that any of us do, or how any of that's processed necessarily, but that is an improvement I would love to see. Maybe even add it to the cinema mode. So yeah, this has been my brief setup with a little more dedicated video setup for the iPhone. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what setups you're using or how this could be improved or tweaked. And most importantly, let me know if this little setup was helpful to you. I don't have affiliate links or anything like that, but I can surely list any gear in the description or in the comments. So it is incredible quality coming from a phone, and with the right setup, it could be maybe your main video camera, but it's got a long ways to go before it replaces any cinema camera. So yeah, that is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all the YouTuber stuff. And once again, thanks for watching. Later.